New York City covers almost 500 square miles of space, 520 miles of coastline, and hundreds of green spaces.
That's right. All of that can cause the weather to vary drastically from neighborhood to neighborhood. Fox 5's Audrey Puente takes a deep dive into the city's microclimates, borough by borough.
A microclimate is when weather conditions can differ in a relatively small area. Here in the 5 boroughs, those weather variables can happen from block to block. For example, it could feel several degrees warmer in Central Park than just a few blocks west along the Hudson River.
One of the nice things about New York, and the reason people agree to live in New York, is because of the parks, which of course would be their own subset microclimate, purely vegetation.
Brian Van Hull is a research scientist with the City College of New York who studied how temperatures vary from one neighborhood to another, depending on elevation, building type, and other factors.
Where the buildings are high, it's going to be cooler just because of the shade. Where they're low, you're getting exposed to more of the sunlight.
Areas near bodies of water, such as the Hudson River or the Atlantic Ocean, may have slightly cooler temperatures and higher humidity compared to inland areas. Additionally, parks and green spaces within the city can create microclimates with slightly lower temperatures and increased vegetation. In addition, the presence of tall buildings can create wind tunnels, leading to higher wind speeds in certain areas and even wind chills. Those conditions can vary neighborhood to neighborhood.
So what we have here is one of these wonderful New York neighborhood streets filled with trees. So we're getting that evaporative cooling from the leaves of the trees. We're getting the shade not just from the trees, but from the buildings themselves. This would be a nice, cool neighborhood street in the hot summer.
So it's like an atmospheric blanket almost.
So we're just 1 block away from where we just were. Much wider open neighborhood. Not as many trees. In fact, about half of these came from the Milling Tree Project just in the last few years. A lot more sunlight. This would be a much hotter place to be on a summer afternoon.
In Manhattan, skyscrapers create their own microclimate.
These buildings can speed up the winds in between buildings. You can get like channeling of winds. They can change the wind direction versus maybe a more open area.
Buildings have two impacts. One is they block the sun. The other one is they absorb energy and then they re-radiate it.
In the Bronx, the influence comes from the Long Island Sound.
That temperature differential allows for a development of what we call sea breezes, or in this case, sound breezes. So you can stay a little bit cooler right along the coastal areas of the Bronx versus as you get further inland, you don't get as much of that relief from the heat.
Similarly, Queens' biggest influence is the Atlantic Ocean.
We'll see that sea breeze develop along the Rockaways, go into Jamaica, across Jamaica Bay into southern parts of Queens. We can see temperatures sometimes drop 15, 20 degrees, even more, as that sea breeze develops.
Just like Queens, Brooklyn's temperatures can be influenced by cool sea breezes. Meanwhile, the tall buildings of its downtown area creates an urban heat island effect. Staten Island is surrounded by water and is also influenced by elevation. At 300 to 400 feet above sea level, Staten Island is the highest point in the 5 boroughs.
If you visit Staten Island, there's a lot more trees there than you find in the other boroughs, and a lot fewer high buildings. So it's going to be cooler in the summers, for sure.
From windy in Williamsburg to sunny in Soho to balmy in the Bronx, in New York City, the microclimates are as unique as the people who call it home.
Audrey Puente, Fox 5 News. It truly is so fascinating. And join Audrey, Nick, Mike, and Liv for Weather Extremes Thursday night at 10:30 and Friday morning at 9:30 right here on Fox 5. And still